What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of New York. This is season 15, episode, I want to say 8. I think it's 8. I'm going to try my best to stick in there, y'all, but Beverly Hills comes on before this. I don't know what's about to happen with this schedule, but let's get into it. So let's talk about it, y'all. So the episode opens up where it left off, where we got Rebecca and Aaron laughing in the hallway as everybody else is left on the dodgeball field, just shocked and in awe at the fact that Rebecca just went off on Aaron for revealing her secret that she is possibly pregnant and they don't know who the father is. So everybody else is like left on the dodgeball field trying to figure out, like, girl, what do we say to her when she comes back in here? So Rebecca comes back in with Aaron. They fake like they're still mad at each other, and she's just like, who told? Like, who told y'all this? And so they questioned Bryn, and Bryn was like, well, I went around just asking people, like, what's tea? And she was like, yeah, they told me that you and your husband Gavin, y'all get down, y'all a little freaky and all of that stuff. And Rebecca's like, really? And so then you have Jenna in her confessional being like, I really didn't think that Bryn got down that way. Like, I'm actually like shocked and a little appalled at her behavior. So then Rebecca and Aaron are like looking at each other, and they're just like, girl, just tell him. And so they were like, it's a prank. It's a prank. So everybody's like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's a prank. Rebecca thought it was hilarious. So what we find out is that Rebecca and Aaron, on last episode when we saw them have their lunch together, Rebecca was the one that came up with the idea of doing the prank, and Aaron thought it would be hilarious. So Rebecca's whole reasoning for doing the prank was to find out who's the leaky pigeon. When I tell you I'm so sick of this whole pigeon analogy, it feels like when a child learns like a new word and they respond to everything with that word, even if it's not in the right context. It's like when a baby learns how to say no. So then all they say is no, 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 even when they actually want something. But it's just they're excited to use the word because it's a word that their parents acknowledge, and they acknowledge it and they know the meaning of it. Because them constantly saying pigeon this, pigeon that, I'm like, y'all don't have any other analogies? No other analogies to use. I'm sick of it. So the next scene we see is like flashbacks of when Aaron tells Jessel and Bryn last episode about like, oh my God, Rebecca might be pregnant and it might be by another man. And, you know, she had a one night stand. But then the next flashback after that is the one where we see her on a double date with her husband, Abe, and Raquel and her fiance. And we see Aaron actually tell Raquel that about the prank. So Raquel was in on the prank, like she knew it was a prank. So now Raquel is looking at Bryn kind of weird because she's like, well, then why did Bryn add the extra sauce about contacting people and finding out that, you know, they are like a freaky couple and they get into the whole one night stands and, you know, your husband can sleep with whoever, you can sleep with whoever, wife and all of that stuff. So she's like, You have Jessel in her confessional being like, honestly, if I was going to do a prank, it would have been funny. And then you have Sai bringing up the fact that she was like, this kind of gives like baby privilege in a sense, where she was just like, you have 3 people in this group that are wanting to get pregnant, and it pans to Jessel, Uba, and Bryn. And it was just like, why would this be a prank that y'all do, you know? Now, I did see some discourse online about that where some people were like, oh, people are too sensitive. And other people were like, no, I actually agree. I'm kind of down in the middle Because on one hand, I could totally understand how this joke would be offensive to people that possibly were trying to conceive. But then on the other hand, I was like, this is stupid. So I was like, I wouldn't even be offended by this if I was having those types of issues, because it wasn't funny. Like, a prank is meant to be funny, and nothing about this was funny. It just felt dumb. So now that everybody understands that it was a prank, the wheels are turning and people are like, well, why did you do this? like like what was the reason? So you have Rebecca saying that they wanted to figure out who the leaky pigeons were in the group, and so it was pretty much like a test. So Bryn is like, this is not the SAT, this is not the GRE, what are you testing us for? You have Uba being like, this was stupid. And then you have Aaron chiming in, pretty much being like, and I just want to go on the record, if any of y'all told me a secret or told me that you were pregnant and not to tell, I would not tell. You know, she was like, I know a secret about everybody and I have yet to tell anyone. So then Uba gets like very agitated, and she was like, girl, you don't know nothing about me, you don't have no secret on me, like you better like course correct that. And so Aaron was like, okay, I know a secret about everybody except Uba. And I was like, well, okay. So then Rebecca ends up saying like, all this just proves is that you can't tell nothing to Bryn and Jessel. And Jessel was like, no, you can tell me stuff. The only person I told was my mother. So the next scene we see is with Jessel and Bryn, and I guess it's supposed to be Fleet Week. So when the ships dock at the I don't know, what are they? Is it the harbor? Is that what I don't know what they call that New York area where they dock and they all get off the ship and, you know, go around town and stuff like that. So we see Bryn and Jessel sit down and they talk about Jessel and Pavitt and having the third baby and how she's ready. And she's just like, if you don't steer the boat, you know, you won't get what you want. And then we also talk about Bryn, and that's how we find out that Bryn did egg retrieval in London and that she really wants to have kids. And she's like beating herself up because she was like, all the times that I popped a plan B when I was dating like a billionaire or a millionaire or somebody with status that had good looking genes and all of that stuff. And now here I am at 38 years old and I want a child, and I wanted to do it, you know, I guess quote unquote the right way by settling down and getting married, but it just didn't work. So, but I still want my baby. So then we find out that her ex-fiance Gideon, the one that we met last season from London, is coming to town, and she wants to proposition him to be, I guess, like her sperm donor slash co-parenting partner. And Jessel was like, well, does he know that's why you asked him to come? And she was like, no, I'm doing kind of like a trial run to see if we would be good parents because my friend Lauren is bringing her son Luca and I'm going to babysit him. But I told Gideon we're having like a wine tasting type situation and he loved wine, so he'll be down for it. So we move on from that scene. We then see Uba talking to this person that plans like lavish picnics in Central Park, and Uba wants to invite everybody to that event collectively so the girls can get together. So the next scene we have is of Raquel and her fiance Mal going to a sex store. They're trying to get props and things of that nature, mainly because for their engagement party, they're going to have a Pose theme party. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't think of like sex shop when I think of Pose, especially if they're basing it off of the TV show, which was a great show. And I wish it had more than 3 seasons. Like Pose to me could have definitely been like a 5-season type of show, because I felt like the 3rd season was rushed. And I also wanted to see what these characters would be like as they got older, like transitioning from the 80s to the 90s. But Pose was basically about the ballroom scene in the 80s. And if you don't know what the ballroom scene is, it pretty much was like a community of Black and Latino, gay and openly trans people and openly queer people, you know, just coming together and building community. They have like, and it's like a competition. So you have like different categories. They do like fashion, face, body categories. They also do, dancing, like, voguing and stuff like that. Honestly, it's like a pageant, but with like several different categories in my mind. So like when they went to the sex shop, I was like, that's not what I think about when I think about Pose. I think about the fashion categories and the face and the giving the realness and all of that stuff. But while they're there, we see them play with different props, like they had whips, like they put a dog collar on Mal. I've never thought that that was attractive. Like it just, that stuff always felt demeaning to me. So I never was like, no, it just don't do it for me. And then while they're there, Mal brings up the children and the mom and how the kids are kind of missing their grandmother and don't understand the switch up. Because before the grandmother left to go to Puerto Rico, she was hanging out with a lot of progressive people. And now that she's in Puerto Rico, she's a lot more conservative. So the kids just don't understand what truly happened. And Raquel doesn't understand it either. So then Mal ends up asking Raquel, so how would you feel if, she don't like come to the wedding or doesn't want to be involved? And Raquel doesn't really have like a response to it other than like it would pretty much kind of hurt her feelings. But at this point, it's like it is what it is. So the next scenes we get is of two different conversations going on at once. So you have Aaron and Jessel with their mothers as this place called like Genius Gyms where the kids can like play with like build-a-blocks. And then you have Raquel, Uba, Sai, and Bryn going to the Museum of Sex. So let's start off with Jessel, Aaron and their moms. So as the kids are running around them, you got Jessel asking, I think Aaron's mom, like, hey, did you know about the prank or have you heard about the prank that your daughter was in on? And the mom is like, no, what are you talking about? So Aaron ends up explaining to her mom that Rebecca came up with this idea to tell everyone that she was pregnant, but she was pregnant by somebody other than her husband, or she didn't know. And the mom has this look like, that's not funny. Like, y'all thought that was funny. And Jessel is kind of like, yeah, girl, it wasn't funny. So right now, as it states in like the part of the episode, the only people who seem to be privy to the joke was Raquel, Rebecca, and Aaron. But then Jessel ends up asking Aaron, did you tell Bryn? Because I had drinks with Bryn, and Bryn told me that you and her went out for drinks and you told her that it was a prank. And Aaron's like, no. But then Aaron to me contradicted herself, because in the confessional, she ends up admitting that her and Bryn went out for drinks after hanging out with Jessel. And Bryn kept pestering her, being like, is it true that she's pregnant and she doesn't know who the father is, or is she pregnant at all? And I think Aaron ends up being like, yeah, she's pregnant, but she does know it's her husband's baby, because Aaron ends up being like, well, I kind of made like a face or like a gesture, like, nah. So it's like Bryn somewhat knew it was a prank, but she didn't know the specifics of the prank, because later on when we see the conversation that she has with the ladies at the Museum of Sex, they show us a flashback of her telling Uba she's pregnant, but it's a prank. So I don't think Aaron specifically told her everything, but she at least told her that the part about Rebecca being pregnant by another man was not true. So Jessel is kind of looking at Aaron like, who's telling the truth? Because now I'm questioning who's telling me the truth. So we go to the Museum of Sex and we see the ladies, like, they go around. I would like to go and see all the cool like things that they have in there. I didn't even know there was like a slide in there. It seems like it's fun. And so they sit down in this area and they start talking about the prank. And Uba ends up basically saying that Aaron set up Bryn, because Bryn ends up letting us know, that's when she tells them that she knew about the prank, and they do the flashback. And so Bryn in her confessional says, I had drinks with Aaron and I asked her, and she pretty much was like, no, she's not pregnant by another man. She goes on to say that, since I was in on the first prank with the cockroaches, I'm like, okay, here comes prank number 2, let's spice it up. So that's why I added the information about me going and talking to other people and them telling me that they are freaks in this. And that's why I went up to y'all and was like, yeah, y'all know they freaks in the sheets, because it's a joke. And even Uba ends up saying that Bryn is messy, but she don't be messing with people's families. And Uba also says, I know why I wasn't in on the prank, because I'd have told y'all this is not funny and they wouldn't have got it over on me. So Raquel is starting to get irritated because she was like, I came into the museum questioning Bryn and her character. Now I'm questioning Aaron's because Aaron told me, and it's like, well, girl, why didn't you tell me that Bryn knew? Because I was looking at Bryn like she can't be trusted. So Raquel is basically like, yo, when I see Aaron at this picnic, because we find out that Uba invites everybody to do the picnic in Central Park, she's just like, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with her because I don't like this. And Sai basically tells her, girl, good luck with that, because Aaron doesn't admit to anything really, girl. So she's not gonna like take ownership of it. So you're kind of out of luck. So the next scene we have is of Pavid and Jessel doing couples therapy over Zoom. Pavid was getting on my nerves eating them chips while the therapist was trying to have the session with him. And it just was rude. It was just rude. And it was just kind of like, okay, do you really not want to be here? But then now I'm looking at people who are like, they feel like this might be a fake storyline. And I'm like, I don't know if it is or not, but I also just feel like he is putting on. I feel like Pavid is putting on, because I was like, the Pavid we saw last season, I don't think would be that disrespectful, because I just feel like it was disrespectful for him to just sit there eating them chips and salsa. And I'm like, water is one thing, but chips and salsa is another. So the therapist and them are like, having this session, and they're talking about working on their communication. And then the therapist brings up how he's like, well, Pavid, when we had on our 101 session, you end up saying that like you're 99% sure that you don't want any other kids, but there is 1% of you that is kind of like maybe. And Jessel was like, oh, that's news to me. And he was like, yeah, like never say never, like there's always a possibility that something could happen. And I'm just like, okay, this might be fake. This might be a fake, because I'm like, you have been saying we'll see, and no, I don't want them, no this, no that, to now maybe. So Jessel is like, well, this gives me hope that I can turn that 1% into 100%. Honestly, I've been looking at this storyline from different angles, like from a male's perspective and the female's perspective, and ultimately I feel like because they are embryos and not eggs, because eggs comes from one person's body, just like sperm comes from one person's body, whereas an embryo, it takes 50-50. You need someone with the egg, you need somebody with the sperm in order to create an embryo. And I just feel like if the man is saying no, then you need to respect it. The same way if it was a woman saying, no, I don't want to have another baby, I'm not going through that again, I would be like, yeah, you need to respect her wishes as well. So I feel like constantly asking this man, like, you want to have a baby, you want to do, and it's like, also, Jessel, y'all can't even handle the 2 kids you got. I feel like it'd be totally different if you were having a better time, like, managing both twins, and like things weren't as hectic, that then I'd be like, well, maybe give her, leeway. But no, y'all always seem stressed out. Okay. And your kids are 2 years old. Maybe you need to wait till they're like 4 or 5 where they can speak and then pop a baby in there. But I'm just like, I don't know about all of this. Okay. But I also understand it's an age thing, because I do think Jessel is in like her mid 40s. I think she's like 45 or something like that. So I understand. Let's see how Jessel. Yeah, she's 45. So I understand waiting too long, because nobody wants to have a baby in their 50s. So I get it. I get it. But it's also like, girl, no ma'am. So the next scene we have is of Bryn and Luca. So we see the cute little kid there. He's having a fun time, playing with slime and toys and all of that stuff. And so Gideon gets there. So he sees Luca and he's like, girl, what is this? He was like, are we babysitting? And I will say Gideon and Bryn's chemistry is there. They play off each other very well. They both have the same sense of like sexual humor or cheekiness, if you would call it. So they sit down on the couch, and Bryn basically asks Gideon about being her sperm donor, and he actually agrees to it. But we find out when Bryn was having the sit down with Jessel earlier in the episode that Luca actually really likes Bryn for who Bryn is, not the idea of Bryn, but actually who Bryn is. So I'm like, why didn't it work? Do you not like the fact that he actually likes you for who you are and that scares you? But she also said that Gideon really wasn't down for having kids. Like, he likes his lifestyle, but she basically was like, if I wanted a baby, he would give me a baby. He basically said he'd be down for it. So she's like, once there's like a little Bryn running around, he probably would be too happy to like bother me about getting back together. But I'm also like, I feel like you're making a rash decision. Understandably, Bryn is 38 years old, and she says she wants to have a baby before she turns 40, so she has 2 years before that happens. But being realistic, I think having a baby is a much more lifelong commitment than a marriage. Like, people get divorces and move on, but having a baby, you're going to be a parent until you die. Like, let's just call a thing. People who are like in their 50s and 60s still call and rely on their parents until they are no longer on this earth and they transition. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like, why we're doing this, because Bryn then ends up saying that, like, in her confessional, she knew Gideon would agree because he always agrees to everything that I ask him. But she also doesn't know if, like, how she's going to work out the logistics of him being in LA. And he's also, like, international because he splits his time between LA and London. And I'm like, then why would you ask him that? Because you shouldn't be expecting him to, like, just uproot his whole entire life for you. And I'm also looking at Gideon. Why would you agree to this with Bryn? A person that left you or broke up your engagement. Like, I don't know. I just feel like, girl, just go to the sperm bank. If it's that serious for you to have a baby, go to the sperm bank and get it over with. But you don't want that because you want to have like the security of Gideon, like, always being there. So I'm looking at her like, okay, sis, like, if Gideon's going to be going back and forth to London, that baby is going to be an international baby, and you're going to have to get that passport ready to go to LA, to go to London, and he's going to have to be ready to be going to LA, London, and New York, back and forth. That's just what it's going to be. So the last scene we have is of the ladies going to Central Park for Uba's picnic. And it's a nice little setup. Everybody's supposed to wear white and all of this stuff. And Bryn, Sai, and Uba are there first. So Sai lets Bryn know, girl, I've been texting Rebecca, and I'm pretty much like trying to let her know, like, girl, the prank wasn't funny, but she thought it was hilarious. And Bryn is like, So then you see Uba come and sit down, and Uba's just like, girl, I just can't believe you got set up like that, because we all really thought that you was like spreading more rumors and doing more harm, and then come to find out you knew about the prank. Like, Aaron really set you up to like make you take the fall. So then Jenna gets there, and they let Jenna in on everything, and Jenna's like, what are you talking about? She was like, I knew about the prank. And Jenna was like, no, Aaron said like the only people that knew was Raquel, her and Rebecca. She was like, no. And then Uba chimes in. She was like, she got framed. And Uba's like, they pretty much tried to make it seem like Bryn was being extremely messy. And everyone's kind of like, oh, this is about to be an interesting picnic. And we end up seeing Aaron get there next as she's walking towards the picnic. And that's where it ends. This is how I feel. I think production did themselves a huge disservice because the backlash of this prank outweighs the payoff. And I feel as though they should have let us in on this prank the same way that they let us in on the cockroach prank. Like, show us all the key players that are a part of the story, and then let us like watch it and figure out how we feel. Because now we playing Nancy Drew like everybody else, trying to figure out who was in on the prank and who wasn't in on the prank. And right now it's definitely feeling like Aaron is a pot stirrer and a bone collector and the leaky pigeon, for a lack of a better, term. bathroom, because it's like, I don't think Rebecca knows that Aaron told Bryn or told Raquel. And then it makes Bryn look like a pot stirrer, which I do believe that she knew about the prank, but like all the extra additive stuff, even if you were in on the prank, it still makes you look messy compared to the way we've seen you before, because we've seen you manipulate and twist words and start things like that. And then Rebecca just looks lame to me, because it's like, you don't really have nothing going on, so why are you here? Like, you're not trying to be honest about the whole Scientology thing. You're not really trying to share with anybody. You're very uninteresting. And the fact that you had to give us a prank just lets us know that, girl, this is not the show for you. And maybe you should have never did this. Because I was like, girl, I'm bored. I'm bored. And it just wasn't it. And it also kind of, I think what's going to happen with New York is that now that Beverly Hills is on, girl, them ratings are about to drop. Because I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I want to watch this, but I'm going to try to stick with it, because I started with it. Like, I started it, and I'm one of those type of people, like, if I start something, I want to complete it. But to be honest, y'all got to give me more than this. So yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. And as always, remember to be bravely authentic. Make sure you hop down in the comments below and share your thoughts, as well as give me a like and subscribe if you like what you heard. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.